Hey guys, this is Scott over at theversatileguitarist.com. In this video, we're going to learn a short and easy piece from the Spanish Baroque period, and in the process talk about two very important concepts: string dampening and something that gives beginners a lot of trouble, dotted quarter notes. When you think of Baroque music for the guitar, you're probably thinking of Johann Sebastian Bach. Of course, the pieces that we play as guitarists weren't written for guitar at that time, but we don't often think of Spain when we think of Baroque music. When we hear those famous Spanish guitar pieces, those are by and large coming from the Romantic period. But there is Baroque Spanish guitar, and one name will pop up now and then when you study classical guitar, and that's Gaspar Sanz. He's the guy who wrote this very famous Canary Jig, or Canarios. And that one's a little more difficult, mainly because of all the hammer-ons and pull-offs that we have to do. But this little piece called Españoleta, this nice little waltz in A minor, is a piece that you'll find in many, many classical guitar books. And it's a great one for working on some basic concepts and techniques. Let's check out this whole piece from start to finish, and then talk about how to play it. Okay, beautiful little short piece. This is a waltz in A minor, or a harmonic minor you could say, now and then when you see a G sharp note in there. The first thing I want to point out is that this song, like most classical guitar pieces, is written in two voices. When we read tablature, we get lazy and we just look at the numbers as we go. But if we can, we really should, even if we're not great sight readers, or even if we don't know that much about rhythms, we should look above the tablature in the standard notation and notice what's happening there, because there's a lot of clues as to how long you should let notes ring out over other notes. So if you notice how we have stems that point down and point up, well, in a case like this, they're not pointed down or up randomly. They're actually telling us that we have the bass voice and the melody voice. So the stems that point up is the melody, and the stems that point down is the bass. Now you notice that almost every bass note is a long note that we can see through. It's a dotted half note that gets 3 beats. My whole point here is that we need to let those low notes ring out as long as possible. And a good policy is to use your thumb on every downstem note whenever you see a bass note, and that's almost always going to be true. And the reason for that, we'll see coming up, is that it allows us to capitalize on our strongest fingers. Because if you think about it, there's nothing ever going to be lower than the bass voice. So if you used a finger other than your thumb, we may run out of fingers for the melody. So this is a waltz. We've got 3 beats per measure, and we're going to have only 2 real rhythms happening throughout this whole piece. One is going to be playing on every beat, going 1, 2, 3. Those are quarter notes. 2, 3, and then we're going to extend the first note now and then, and you can see those measures that have a dot after that quarter note. What a dot does to a note is lengthen it by half of its value, so we have a beat and a half now. This is kind of tricky for a lot of people when they first start out, because it's kind of syncopated and weird. But if we were going to count the 8th notes that are in the measure, let's go back to just thinking of 1 time per beat. We have a quarter notes, 1, 2, 3. If we play 2 times per beat, 1 and 2 and 3, and that first dotted quarter note is going to last 3 8th notes. 1, 2, and 3. So there's our syncopated rhythm. We have a dotted quarter note, an 8th, and a quarter. We have 1, 2, and 3. It would be great if you could tap your foot there and not get messed up on that second beat where we're not playing anything. That's pretty tricky. So what I just did on an open string, you should do that too to get that rhythm down. We're talking about all quarter notes, and then the measure of a dotted quarter note, 8th note, and another quarter note, back to back, going like this: 1, 2, 3, 1, wait on the 2, and 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. That's a great way to really get into a song when you're not totally confident on the rhythm. Just play the rhythm on an open string and don't worry about what the notes are. So back to that first line, we've got 2 pickup notes. We're not starting on the first beat, we're starting on the second beat. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. Now we have 1 time per beat. Now we're back to the dotted quarter note, and 3. 1, 2, 3. Next line, keep that low note ringing out. Thumb on the G string. 1, 2, 3. Always alternating my fingers. Thumb on the G string on that measure as well, talking about measure 12. Now look at this measure, measure 14. Your middle finger's on this A note on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string. Instead of playing G sharp with our 1st finger, and that finger's already there, why aren't we using it? It just actually makes it a lot easier for getting back into this next shape that we need in the next measure. So it just flows better, and that's what we would call a guide finger. So we're going like this, slide it down, and just slide it back. Now at this point in the song, a lot of the bass notes are open strings, the low E and the A. And so at this point, we might have to start listening for notes ringing out too long. So before, if we were playing C, for example, with our ring finger and the measure's over, we're simply going to release it, and now we don't hear that note anymore. But what if we had a low E in the bass and the next note is A in the bass? We're still hearing that E. That's where the string dampening thing that I was mentioning earlier comes in, and that's where things get weirder and harder to coordinate. But what we're talking about is playing the low E, for in this example, we're playing the low E. I just did a rest stroke. You can kind of nudge the side of your thumb here and touch that string just before you play the A string, or you could simply go like this and sit on that string and then hop over to the A again. So what I'm going to do in this song is go like this and just turn my thumb up just a little bit so I don't hear that low E string anymore. And that takes some doing to get used to that. Things sound so much more clean and clear that way. So I'm going like this, E in the bass, 1, 2, 3, and then touch that low E string, and I'm on to measure 15 here. And same thing right here as we get to the last line of the song. Touch lightly that string. You can sometimes do it with your left hand too. We're just trying to be conscious of how long are the notes supposed to last, and don't let them last longer than that, especially if the notes are going to clash. Now in this last line, we have for the first time a place where we're skipping strings and we're going to skip fingers. So we have our stems that point down there on that F and A note. That's going to be your thumb playing the F, 3rd fret of the 4th string, and your index will play the A. Now we're skipping a string and going to the high E. So instead of stretching your middle finger out, that feels pretty awkward, to go thumb, index, and then spread your fingers, use your ring finger. So we're skipping a string, therefore we should skip a finger. So I'm using thumb, index, and ring at the same time. Gonna dampen that low E string just like that, and at the end, same thing, touch the low E string as you play that last chord. One more time, let's run through this and count it out loud. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3. Another name for the song is Spanish dance, so we'll probably need to play it at a faster tempo. It sounds really cool that way. So if you're a more advanced player, you still should play these little quote-unquote easy pieces, because there's a lot of nuances that we can put into it that we can't do on a more advanced piece because we're just trying to get through it. So if you want to get the PDF for this, check that out in the notes, and I'll see you in the next video.